So I'm with Andrew Bridgen after your day in court. We've been in the Royal Courts of Justice all day today. How do you think it went?
It doesn't really matter how I think it went. I think my barrister put up a pretty strong argument. I thought it was thin from Hancock's side. It's really how Mrs. Justice Collins Rice thinks, and we're going to know that probably within a week, I'd have thought. I'm hoping it's gone well for us.
What, in your mind, what would be the worst case scenario from today? What would be the worst ruling and why?
The worst ruling would be that the judge agrees that our claim has no prospect of success, strikes it out, and makes a cost order to Hancock.
And on the other side, let's say she agrees and says, this needs to go to court. What would be the best possible outcome? Because many people talked about how they're actually excited for the idea of discovery.
The best possible outcome would be the other way round, where Hancock's case was considered, given the fact that he's not going with a defence of truth, that is undefendable. I think we've shown that he's broken multiple rules and the ways that you present your defence in that court, despite having the best legal advice you can have, and that's how can you get to that when you've got the best legal advice? I think the best outcome would have been we get awarded summary judgment on the basis that it's indefendable. After 2 years, he hasn't got a viable defence. When's he going to get one? 4 years, and a liability order. The middle ground is that it moves forward to final hearing, but we've just lost another at least 6-8 months, probably a year, which suits Mr. Hancock. We need a CMC to move forward to a final hearing, probably sometime in 18 months' time, at more huge expense. But the strikeout application by Hancock's team is not accepted, and we should get a costs for today's hearing against him.
And do you think this is actually bigger than Andrew Bridgen? Because the government had a huge impact on the entire nation. Do you actually think if you win here, it's not about you, it's about everyone else who's forgotten?
Also, into the case, Hancock has brought, or his legal team have encouraged him to bring, the issue of the safety and efficacy of the questions about that. That widens the case. And I do not believe time's going to be kind. History will not be kind to Matt Hancock with regard to this government and many governments around the world's handling of the pandemic, the pushing of experimental genetic gene therapy vaccines onto the public, especially children. And the longer this case rolls on, the more disclosure of truth will come, especially from America. And the worse the situation gets for Mr. Hancock. That's one of the reasons he wanted to finish it here today.
And how did it make you feel like whenever, your opposition in court, they kept talking about you being anti-Semitic?
Meeting.
Matt Hancock.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that the disgusting anti-Semitic, anti-vax conspiracy theories that have been promulgated online this morning are not only deeply offensive, but anti-scientific and have no place in this House or in our wider society?
Prime Minister.
Yeah. Well, can I join with my right honourable friend in completely condemning those types of comments that we saw this morning in the strongest possible terms? Obviously, it is utterly unacceptable to make linkages and use language like that, and I'm determined that the scourge of anti-Semitism is eradicated. It has absolutely no place in our society, and I know that the previous few years have been challenging for the Jewish community, and I never want them to experience anything like that.
I mean, that requires a large degree of intent. Your solicitor was making the case that you were never anti-Semitic because you were literally making comparisons about deaths. How does it make you feel when they try and claim you to be anti-Semitic?
The Conservative Party were desperate to get me out of the Conservative Party. I didn't know that being fully supportive of an experimental genetic gene therapy was in our manifesto in 2019. It wasn't. So they had to invent something. And they invented anti-Semitism. And also, I was getting traction with other MPs, and they needed to scare the other MPs not to stand with me on the vaccines. And my suspension and subsequent ostracisation, vilification, being smeared, that scared the other MPs. MPs aren't intrinsically very brave people. They don't take risks. Well, if you can't take risks to try and save the lives of your constituents from experimental dangerous, particularly the children, what's the point of being there, quite honestly?
And what's the feeling in your old constituency? Because in the last election, I made a lot of money on political betting because I'd say I'm good at reading politics. I had money on you to get re-elected. Thinking, I looked at the numbers from your previous campaigns, and I thought it's going to go down a bit because there'll be some that will literally just vote for a blue rosette. But it massively dropped. What do you think the actual feeling is in your old constituency in regards to you?
There's a lot of love out there for me. Not only that, I can't go anywhere I go, speaking or visiting in the UK. On every street I walk on, people come up to me, recognise me, shake my hand. Which former politicians have that in this country? Former prime ministers have to have bodyguards. I don't have to have any bodyguards. I've got friends all over the country, stopping at filling stations, service stations, anywhere. People come up to me, they recognise me, they're very grateful. I can only say that there were a lot of anomalies around that election in North West Leicestershire. It wasn't just you. If you looked at the betting markets, three-quarters of all the money that was bet on the election in North West Leicestershire was bet on me, wasn't it?
That might have been me.
It wasn't bet on anybody else. It wasn't bet on anybody else. It was bet on me. I thought I'd won it. There was a big anomaly about the ballot boxes not coming in on time. It was announced before at 10 o'clock by the returning officer, mysteriously, with a very nervous voice, that we're not going to get onto the count probably till 2 in the morning because we've got to get all the ballot boxes in. Well, I mean, that's the 5th election I've stood at. All the ballot boxes have been in 40 minutes normally. And the constituency had got 20% smaller, not bigger, so I can't understand it. Also, we've got the strange fact that the Ipsos Mori poll, the exit poll in North West Leicestershire, was all organised and was deliberately stopped 2 weeks before the election. It was cancelled. Well, I mean, a very senior police officer who's long retired, who I actually worked with some years ago, I bumped into him in Colville, and I said to him, he asked me how I was, and I said I was very upset about, I believe there'd been a lot of jiggery-pokery and rigging of the ballots in North West Leicester at the election, and he calmly looked me in the eye and said, Andrew, what did you expect them to do to you?
And finally, you've lost your job, you've lost money, you've been dragged through the mud now for years. It's now years.
Yep.
Would you do it all again?
Yes, I would, because by standing up in that parliament, I managed to stop them ever using those experimental vaccines on under 5s. And if my actions saved one child from injury, I think it would have been thousands and thousands from death and injury. That was enough. Very few people get a chance to do something that makes that much difference in their lives. And if by speaking out in the chamber of the House of Commons, people around the world realised, oh, there might be something wrong with these vaccines, I don't think I want another booster, if that will have saved lives. And it's all going to come out in the wash. And it was said to me before I was thrown out of the party that they wanted to cover up the vaccine harms for 20 years. I don't think they're going to get 20 months from January 23. We'll see. It's all going to come out, I think, in America very, very quickly now. And I'm looking forward to being vindicated. I wish I wasn't. I wish it wasn't true. But unfortunately it is, and we have to live in the world as we find it, not how we'd like it to be.
No, thank you very much. And
thank you very much for your support today. Thank you.